Yeah, so my name's Elizabeth Zagroba. I'm going to be talking about succeeding as an introvert today. I was happy to see that some of the earlier presentations touched on empathy and feelings and other people. I will also be touching on that, although I'll mostly be speaking from personal experience, so I leave it to you to decide whether I have in fact succeeded. Regardless, I hope that in describing myself and what introverts are, and how introversion has helped me as a tester. I'm a tester, not a developer, sorry. I'm also American, I'm sorry about everything. Yeah. But anyway, I hope that in describing all of these things, you'll be able to gain some insight into your own inner workings or somebody of those, like somebody that you work with, regardless of whether you think that introvert is the right label or whether you want to put people in those kinds of boxes. So anyway, this is what we'll be talking about today. I'll start with a bit about you and a bit about me. So I'll describe what makes me an introvert, which qualities of an introvert I identify most with. I'll explain how being an introvert has helped me as a tester. And finally, we'll get to the main event, how to succeed as an introvert. So a bit about you. I want to thank the gentleman who gave me the adapter in the front row. Shout out to him. But also thanks to all of these people. Martin and Mark are my mentors, and they helped me. They helped convince me that I had something to say in front of a big group of people like this, and they helped me figure out how best to do that. I also want to thank Susan Cain and Laurie Helgoe. Laura Helgoe? Oh gosh, it's different on both. Okay. One of those, Helgoe. Anyway, it was through their work, those two ladies both wrote books that I felt validated in the choices that I've made in my life. Their books really helped shape this presentation. I also want to thank the extroverts who populate the United States and this world. You make me uncomfortable enough to go in front of a bunch of strangers and tell personal stories about myself. So it's really good. So to start out, I have a couple questions for you. You don't need to answer now, but take a picture of the slide or write them down or just think about them over the next few minutes. Ask yourself, what did you want to be when you grew up, or what dreams you might have had for yourself as a child, and where in your life you feel most comfortable now. Where are you in your element? We'll come back to this at the end. So here are a few things worth knowing about me. I'm a tester. I've tested web apps and mobile applications, both with user interfaces. I've tested just APIs. I focused mostly on functional and usability testing, but I've covered a wide range of stuff. And I've worked both on co-located and distributed teams. What else? I make mind maps. Mind maps are one of the ways that I take notes and try to organize my thoughts so that I can share what is in my brain with everybody else's brains. I ask lots of questions. I listen. And probably most importantly for this presentation, I'm an introvert. So let me tell you about that. I thrive when I'm alone. I'm a passionate spectator. I prefer to take in what's happening around me rather than getting involved. What else? I learn best by analyzing something on my own. So I've had teammates spend an hour telling me about a product, but if I have 20 minutes to explore it by myself, I have a better grasp of what it does. Being able to dive into something alone allows me to explore only the parts of the thing that I don't already understand. The right level of stimulation for me is less stimulation than other people find comfortable, so I need less coffee, less white noise, fewer people around me. I recharge when I'm alone, and I burn out when I'm around other people for too long. I don't like small talk. When someone asks me how I am or how's it going, I stop to consider what is actually occurring in my life before I answer, and by the time that happens, they've fulfilled their social responsibility of like acknowledging that I'm a human and I haven't returned the favor, and then they've already walked past me. It's just, yeah, it's tough. That said, I wouldn't describe myself as being shy. Being introverted is not the same as being shy. Shyness is a form of social anxiety where you want to be out in the world doing more than you are. It's not anxiety that stops introverts from being social. It's that they just don't want to. So in other words, I don't have a fear of missing out. I don't know how much this is true in the Netherlands, but at least in America, Americans hold extroverts in higher esteem than introverts. So American corporations value teamwork over independent work. They value brainstorming. And American schools have shifted from lectures largely to group work to prepare kids for this real world. So when I was in school, group work to me always seemed like a scam where the kids with the louder ideas had their worse ideas realized. And part of our grade was always class participation. So I ended up gravitating away from the humanities and towards math and physics because, at least in those places, my grades were more determined by my test scores and my quizzes. Those were things I could prepare for alone. And for a long time, I assumed things were easier for other people, that other people liked it this way. Other people seemed to fit into this American extroverted ideal. My classmates were friendly and bold. They were entertaining. They presented themselves well. People like me who were private or reserved, disciplined, or even just meant what they had to say tended to go unnoticed. I felt alienated from my classmates because I didn't feel recognized. My values weren't reflected in my society. What I didn't know at the time was how many other people felt this way. Over 57% of Americans identify as introverts. So more than half of the world around me was just like me, and I had no idea there were so many of us. So you probably have a clearer picture of me now, but how does my temperament manifest itself with the people around me? And more specifically for us here, how does being an introvert help me on the job? I like writing. I'm able to better express myself in writing because I'm not interrupted the way I can be in conversation, especially American conversations. Writing things down instead of saying them out loud allows me to form a complete thought and then express it with a chance to edit it first. So when I come to a conference like this, I take notes during the sessions, and then I spend time later tweeting or blogging or sharing with my colleagues back at the office what I have found the most important. And all of that helps me process what I've learned. I'm a good listener. I'm not just thinking about the next thing that I want to say when you're done talking, I'm actually listening. So when I go to meetings at work, I'm listening for important dates, names, or deliverables, so I see if they can match up with everyone's expectations later, or if I can add the details to the JIRA tickets when necessary. People may find it rude to have a computer open or a phone out during a meeting, but people generally understand that if you have a pen and a paper, you're really listening and engaging with what they're saying. When I'm at work, I like working. I'm not interested in the small talk that takes place around the water cooler or playing foosball with the guys in the game room. When people stop by my desk and ask me what I'm up to today, my answer is usually that I'm doing my job, because I want to solve the problems and tackle the big issues. I like making a plan, so I end up staying on task longer than my colleagues. I notice more things and think things through more deeply than other people. In a meeting, I might stay quieter than others because I'm piecing together all the information that's being thrown at me. So when I'm testing a particular story, I keep a list or a mind map of all the things I notice, but that don't specifically have to do with that story. I know that I can easily spend too much time investigating something that's a lower priority for the client, but much more interesting to me. So once I put the story down, I go back to the list and touch base with someone on the team. Then I can double check that all the rabbit holes that I want to go down are actually important enough to explore further. I prefer to think before I speak or act. There's always a point in a sprint planning meeting where everyone thinks that we've talked about all we need to in a particular story, and somebody asks, like, okay, are we ready to estimate now? Like, how many story points are we giving this? And everyone is silent or has a resounding yes vote. And I'm that one person that always just thought of one more thing to ask, or one more thing that I just pieced together. As an introvert, I'm not as focused on the rewards. I'm more focused on threats and risks. So when somebody tells me that they're going to show our software to the suits upstairs, I'm not thinking about how they'll be so proud of us or happy with the product. I'm asking myself, which bugs are they going to find that I've found? And more importantly, which bugs are they going to find that I haven't found? Because I don't want to embarrass people. So I try to bring all of the risks, the biggest risks ideally, to the forefront so that everybody knows what they're getting themselves into. And it would be easy to just ask questions of what's in front of me, but I don't. I ask what-if questions. When I think I find a bug in a product, I ask, what if this is the same problem that somebody saw last week? Or what if the code didn't make it to the testing environment? Or what if this only happens in one browser? Or the worst, what if the designer meant for this to happen? When I'm writing a ticket, I consult the designs, or I look at the pull request history, or I go and find the ticket where this happened previously, or I go and look at the behavior in a different browser. I give the developer a more complete picture about what is happening and what should be happening so that their fix can address the problem everywhere it occurs. And that can be hard. It would be easier for the developers if I didn't find any bugs. It'd be easier for the designers if they didn't have to find a different solution. People want their stuff to work, and they want you to agree with them. But as an introvert, I don't cave to peer pressure or groupthink. I can honestly evaluate risk because I'm not allowing my peers to talk me out of it. So when someone tells me not to worry about something, that's an indicator for me that they are not worrying about it, and I should be. Sometimes at work, I'm drawn into a brainstorming conversation with a group of people, but brainstorming is not the best place for me to come up with the most creative ideas. Brainstorming is a good place to build team cohesion and make people feel attached to one another, but I get more creative ideas when you let me think by myself. And all of that said, it probably makes me sound like a huge party pooper. I promise, I work well in groups. In fact, the 60 or so developers and testers at my last job voted me the most collaborative. And I think that's because of a few things. I say thank you, I listen, and I give other people credit for their ideas. I treat people with respect, so when people are trying to get an answer or need help, they're more likely to come to me than to go to someone else on the team. And I try to minimize embarrassment. I congratulate people in public and ask them in a direct message if they actually merge that pull request to the right place. I don't get bogged down in petty blame or disagreements. I focus on the ultimate goal. I don't care about having my stamp on something or having the best idea come from me. I contribute when I have something to say. So if I don't have anything to say, I just don't say anything. Yeah, so that's a lot about what introversion is, but what does all of that mean for you, and how can you succeed as an introvert? If you are an introvert, ask for what you need. And if you're an extrovert, treat others how they want to be treated. To recognize when you're draining someone, you need to notice both your emotions and the emotions of others around you. Consider how someone else wants to be treated, decide how to act, and then consider how your actions affect them. And if you're having trouble understanding any of those pieces of the puzzle, find a coach or ask your manager so that you can honestly evaluate your blind spots. I've been able to change other people's behavior by explaining how I can best contribute or suggesting we try things another way. Introverts do better when we have time to prepare, so when I receive a meeting invite without an agenda, I ask what the agenda is going to be. If I know what topics I'd like to be included, I add the details to the meeting invite or email the organizer ahead of time. If I know that there are going to be people there that are hard to interrupt or speak over, I find an extroverted ally to help me craft my ideas ahead of time and maybe even flag someone down to interrupt them. When I get to a meeting, sometimes I suggest people collect their thoughts on Postits or on pieces of paper. We use this particularly if we're having a retrospective or some other kind of more difficult conversation, some kind of feelings conversation. If I need to interrupt, I raise my hand or I flag down my extroverted ally. If the written record is what matters from the meeting, I get my self-appointed note taker if I can, so that I can then just add my extra thoughts in the notes. If I don't think of something during the meeting, I'll follow up with people afterwards. I like to use tools like Slack, where you can edit after the fact in case I need another chance to express myself or add to my ideas. I like to explain to others that being useful and getting stuff done motivate me, and things that get in the way of that bother me. So being drawn onto lots of different tasks makes me feel like I haven't accomplished anything. So I try to find small chunks of time where I can put my headphones on or quit Slack so that I can focus on my work without having to address all of my colleagues' concerns. I do my best to explain my preference to my colleagues without apologizing or feeling guilty for giving them my best. On the other hand, if I feel like I'm not providing much value, I'll ask someone I trust on the team if a particular behavior or work product is valuable, or where they have ideas about where I can provide value. As a tester, you have to sort of fit in where the need is, and it's not always as clear what to do in any given situation. Hopefully, if you're an introvert like me, meetings are not the majority of your day, and you get to do some of your work at your desk or in your own space. Most places I've worked have had open office plans where I always feel like I'm performing and I'm on display. Everyone can see me and my screen all of the time. So I've done the best I can to customize the space that I have, whether that's moving the location of my desk or bringing in things from home that make me feel more comfortable. I especially love my noise-canceling headphones. Despite all these measures, at some point, I get overstimulated at the office and I need a break. I know I'm overstimulated when I have trouble determining priorities, I have an important decision to make, or I just haven't been able to think creatively. I know that I need to be alone to recharge, so I try to remember that many conversations are optional and most conversations can be postponed, whether it's by a few minutes or a few days. I try to allow some time after a meeting or a conversation to digest what I've just learned. I go fill up my water glass or take the long way around back to my desk, or schedule meetings near my lunch break so that I can take solace in that time by myself. I have a mental list of places where I can go outside of the office to be alone, although finding a place really alone in New York is not truly feasible. If all else fails and I'm stuck around other people, sometimes I just don't say anything. I have the right to remain silent. So look around your work environment when you get back to work next week and see if it's right for you. When I'm considering my team members and the people driving my organization, I consider if they listen, if they learn from their mistakes, if they're flexible, if they value me, and if we share our values. When going to work every day is something that you dread, consider what is within your control and what isn't. Have the courage to admit what sucks. Sometimes I found myself surrounded by enough people who don't share my values or just aren't willing to listen or change, or don't value my contributions. And when that happens, I've had to find a different environment for myself. Because any environment that leaves me feeling bad consistently is just the wrong environment for me. That doesn't make any sense. So it's taken a lot of courage to admit what sucks and then escape from it. But finding people who are willing to listen and learn and change have made a big difference in my life. So when I was interviewing at my current company, oh, that's Medidata. We do software for clinical trials. It's spelled M-E-D-I-D-A-T-A, like medical stuff. When I was interviewing there, I asked questions about the physical space and their work from home policy. I wanted a picture of how and when I could escape when necessary. I asked for my start date to be a few weeks after I quit my last job, so I had time to sort of set all of that aside before jumping into a new challenge. I found a better situation for myself. I really like it there. Also, we're hiring. And I hope that with everything we've covered here today, you know what a better situation might be for you. So now, back to these questions. Feel free to answer them during the question and answer section at the end here. But what did you want to be when you grew up? And where were you most in your element? When I wrote my own autobiography in 2nd grade when I was 7 or 8 years old, I said that I wanted to be a writer. And I really count myself lucky that so much of my work today is in writing. And these days, I'm in my element when I'm alone at home. So thanks for listening for a bit, and come share your story with me after this or on the internet if you're an introvert.